first thing I want to do is to show you not only what I've done wrong, but what I've done right. I've done some things right. Huh? Oh, I know, I haven't heard any caucus results. I don't think anybody has that. CNN didn't have them as I was driving in here this morning. Okay, so I want you to find the one paper on your table that says Edgemont Hemsley. Yeah, it says Edgemont Hemsley. So find that one. And I wanted you to know that I really tried to bring my computer and my printer down so that I could print off your own sample ballots for you. So your punishment for coming early and being here on time is for me to explain to you in punishing detail how to get your sample ballot. Now, and I want to tell you why it's so important, and you'll see why in just a minute. But on the back of now I did get enough copies of the other sheet on the table, and if there's not enough at your table, there's more over there. Will you please look at the back of our agenda, please? Look at the back, and look at it upside down, which is the way my printer prints. Someday I'm going to find out another way to do that. But in the bottom half on the paper, I show you how in excruciating detail how to go get your sample ballot, and in that just a moment I'm going to tell you why it's so important for you to get your own sample ballot. Okay, so everybody see where it is on the back, and everybody has their own copy of that paper that you can bring home, and if you have any more people at your table that need a copy, I have more copies over there. I do have copies for you to get your sample ballot. The first thing that's going to be excruciating for you, as it was for the people in Iowa last night, is to select who you want to have representing you at the National Convention. Now, when you vote there in that first box, everybody looks at put the paper in the middle of the table so everybody can see the first box, which is the 11 people that you can vote for president. Now, you are not voting for president. What you are voting for in this primary is you are voting for the people who will represent that person at the National Convention. Now, we have Katie Hoffman and Richard Azimus from this group, who were both going to be representing Bernie Sanders. And if you are a Bernie Sanders fan, or if you want to vote for Katie to go to the National Convention, then you vote for Bernie Sanders. Does everybody understand that? It does not mean you're voting for Amy Klobuchar or Tulsi Gabbard. You understand that has nothing to do with how you feel. It's just voting for the people going to the National Convention. You're voting for your representative. Now, the next thing is, let's see, is Nikki Foster here? Nikki Foster? Kate Schroeder? Good, okay. In the box underneath that, there are two people who would really like to be the representative for Congress for the 1st District. And we have had both of them speak to you. They are both really fine candidates, and I am not going to put down who you should vote for. When I hand this out to my people in my precinct, I may have decided already who I'm going to vote for, and then just recommend that to the other people. But what I'm going to ask you to do is that on your form, that you go back and look those two people up, but then you have their names. And you have their names because you have followed my directions on the back of the sheet, and you have gone and find your sample ballot. Does everybody know how to get the sample ballot? Okay, go for the sample ballot. Now that's in the first column, that's the only one you have to choose from is Nikki Foster and Kate Schroeder. Now, one of them is endorsed, I'm not even going to say whom. One of them is endorsed and one isn't. And you have to decide for yourself whether you want to take an endorsement. in this particular group, we have not followed the endorsement necessarily. We follow Democrats. That's just how we are. When Marlene was not endorsed candidate, we still voted for her, even though she wasn't the endorsed candidate. Does everybody understand what's happening? So I'm not going to recommend one candidate over the other just because they have a Democratic endorsement. That's the first on the first page. On the second page, turn that Hemsley Edgemont paper over. On the second page, you have a whole bunch of people that you have to decide upon. Because even if you are in another place, you need to be able to print this up to find out who to vote for and who, how are you going to look them up? You go to, I can show you my paper. I looked them all up. I have, pages on each candidate, and I can show you what came out for me. I'll be happy to do that. And some of them are endorsed and some of them are not. But for instance, even the Democratic Party could not endorse when it came down to Connie Pillich, Kelly Prather, and Alicia Reese. They could not decide because they're all good folks, and they did not decide, so we're not going to recommend one for you. Does everybody understand what I'm doing here? Yes. But you have to go, that's why you need the sample ballot, because you need to have looked these people up before you get to the ballot box. You need to know who you want to vote for, and you have that by having your own sample ballot with you. And when I went for county recorder, we hadn't seen any of those people. I now know who's endorsed. I'm not going to say who, but somebody's endorsed, but there's at least one other candidate who looks as good or better. You understand, depending on how you look at recommendations. There's one here that I was particularly interested in, was Fannin Rucker versus Gabe Davis. And one's voted, one's endorsed, and one isn't. And I recommended that somebody go work for the other guy because he's really good. I mean, Yale and Harvard, how can you go bad? Okay, does everybody understand what this paper is? And you need to take this home and you need to print out your own sample ballot. You need to know who your people are, and you need to go look them up. And you need to make your own choices before you go to the ballot box, because otherwise there's no use coming here. I can tell you who to look up, but I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. Does that make sense? I really want you to vote for a Democrat. That would be very nice. That's amazing. Yes, it is. Okay, and also on the back of that your agenda, I also have the early voting hours. And you know what? I really would not waste your time getting an absentee ballot, even if you're not able to get to the polls on the voting day. I would highly recommend that you go and get somebody to take you to early voting and just know that you get counted. Because my understanding is that sometimes they don't count those absentee votes until after there's some question. So if you really want your vote to count, go vote early. Don't just do an absentee ballot. And there are plenty of hours to do that.
Alberta, can I say one thing here about early voting?
Wait for the mic.
Oh, I can never, look, my precinct.
Yeah, there you are.
My precinct is right around the corner from
Right.
where I live, not far at all. I have no trouble going to my precinct to vote on election day. So don't assume that everybody needs to go early vote. I mean, some people may.
You're going to miss the fun, though. You don't understand. They have parties over there. And especially the first couple days for absentee voting. Man, how many of you judge people are going to be over there for the first day of voting? Absentee voting.
No, early voting.
Early vote.
Every one of them. Everyone who's going to be there. You want to choose? Go and look at them.
I might drop in.
These guys are going to be here for early voting, so they all have their plans, and that's a good thing to do. The other thing I have to do is make arrangements for March 17th. Now, March 17th, we need a vote here. This room is not available for us on March 17th. There will be another room where I can show a movie, but we're not allowed to have anything that tells anybody that we are Democrats, because we're not allowed to be Democrats in this place for that day. Does everybody understand that? We cannot have I cannot have my name button.
We also have no parking in that lot that day. That's for voters.
But they can go in the back here, right?
No, that belongs to Children's Hospital, and I would vote in there because park in there because you might get towed.
Okay, so there's, okay. There you go. You don't have to come, but if you don't want to come, then that's fine. I'm going to show my movie to myself. Okay, it's a movie about starting the Americans supporting the Israel during 1948. Very interesting. Okay, so just know that there's a question about March 17th. Okay, other announcements. I know there are other announcements.
Tomorrow at 5:30, Reject the Cover-Up Cincinnati will be outside Rob Portman's office at 312 Walnut Street at 5:30. Large gathering all across the United States. Tomorrow at 5:30 outside of Portman's office, which is right there at the corner of 3rd Street and Walnut. It's pretty visible. Bring your signs. We have to definitely reject what has happened in Washington.
Or will be happening tomorrow.
Wednesday, 5:30, 312 Walnut Street. Wednesday, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. That's down along the front by the.
Somebody who was had an incident, how could we reach people? I couldn't send out a separate newsletter tonight or something with just that one notice or what? How do we get our people to know about this?
Okay. I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen anything. I think that has to be more impromptu, I think, because otherwise they have to get street cops and stuff. You understand? I think it really has to be impromptu. Yes. Yeah, we just announced it for tomorrow night. Yeah, if you want to send out a special notice, go ahead.
We, Judge Hunter supporters are gonna be at Government Square Thursday, 4 to 6. Figured we could get a lot of people going through there and passing out information. So I hope some of you will join us Thursday, 4 to 6 at Government Square. Where the buses are, right by the Province Square and the Federal Building.
So don't forget, we're asking everybody to donate $2 because for the room rental. And for a while we were getting a lot, but the last 2 weeks we haven't gotten enough. And is there another Martha here? I'm sorry, our Martha. Somebody ordered a lunch for Martha, but I don't see Martha. All right, thanks.
Anybody want a lunch? Martha's lunch going once.
$1. It's really
Martha's
good.
lunch going twice.
It's vegetarian.
Nice lunch.
There is such thing as a free lunch. Right?
No, if you have a free lunch, you have to pay $10 for it.
It's good to be with you guys again. I just wanted to remind you that tonight at 5 o'clock at Urban Artifact in Northside, the Mike Bloomberg campaign will be hosting a climate change roundtable. You're all welcome to join us, and we are hosting quite a few roundtables around different issues that matter to Democratic voters, like climate change and healthcare reform. You can go to mobilizewithaz.us to find all of our event listings there and stay up to speed on what the campaign's doing.
Could you repeat that?
Sure thing. 5 to 7 tonight, Tuesday, at Urban Artifact in Northside, we'll have a climate change roundtable. No RSVP is needed, but you can go to Mobilize with a Z to see what other events we're hosting.
Mobilize what?
Mobilizewithaz.us. Yep. Thank you.
Where's that Connie Pillage guy?
Thank you. My name is Travis Hines, and I'm the outreach director for the County Pillage Campaign for County Commissioner. And I just don't want to take away from the judicial candidates here. I was just coming by to check out the the meeting, but I do want to mainly remind you that primary is March 17th. That is on St. Patrick's Day. So we're saying just go vote and then go get your shot at Jameson. So we appreciate your support. I do have business cards if anybody's interested in learning any more information. www.countypillage.com. And if you have any questions for me, just let me know. Thank you.
Cards on the table.
Oh, sure. I'll leave some on the table.
If we could talk, am I on?
Yes.
If we could talk about Pillick, we could talk about Bernie, I guess.
Go girl.
I just wanted to tell you that, in case you didn't know about this, unions for Bernie, union members for Bernie, unions themselves have not endorsed anybody, as far as we know. But the union members for Bernie had a big meeting at the Letter Carriers Hall on Sunday afternoon. It was well attended. Got 35 of us, I think. For me, I am a retired union person. I helped start the AAUP union at UC many years ago. And so I keep up, with the union work. And this was great. It was not just union people, but a lot of community people came out too that are working hard for Bernie. I know not everybody here is a Bernie supporter. I sort of think most of us are. But anyway, that was quite a gig. And you can always get online, get on Facebook, or just go online and look for union members, I believe it is, for Bernie.
Is that it? Is that it? Are we ready for our quadruple thing here going on? Do you have if you guys worked out an arrangement about who goes first? Here we start with Ginger Bock.
Hi, everybody. I know most of you because I ran in 2018. My name is Ginger Bock. I'm running for judge for the Court of Appeals. This year, I am the only Democratic Court of Appeals candidate. I don't have a primary, which means I am not going to talk very long. So, because I want to make sure that the people who do have primaries get a chance to talk. But just real quick, I'm going to tell you 2 facts about this year's election with the Court of Appeals. Number 1, the first woman on the Court of Appeals was in 1993. That was Judge Mariana Bettman. She is my friend, she is my mentor, and she is the person who asked me to run for this court. When I win, our court is going to go from 0 women up until 1993 to majority women for the first time ever. Number 2, when I first got out of law school, I worked at the Court of Appeals. I was a staff attorney for Judge Painter. And at that point, the court was 100% Republican. Well, when I win in November, our court is going to be majority Democrat for the first time ever. So that is all I am going to say about my race at this point. I am going to be back in the fall. If a lot of you probably remember, I did a presentation last time on recent Court of Appeals cases that affect everyday people's lives. I'm going to do that again with all new cases. So I hope to see you again sometime in September. Thank you very much, and I'm going to hand it over to, one more thing. If you have this, or if you need this is our slate card. I'm very proud to be a part of this slate. It is the most diverse slate I have ever seen run in Hamilton County. But the one thing you need to know is that this number right here, November 6th, is wrong. It was misprinted. It should be November 3rd. So just take note of that, and then please, there's more over there?
Yeah, I changed all of that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for coming out. Yes, Peter?
We're gonna get a big bunch of them, if you wanted 100 of those.
From the party. Addie should have them.
You have to go.
There.
In Pleasant Ridge, but I'll tell you what, talk to me afterwards and I'll make sure you get some. Okay. All right, thank you, everybody, and I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer Branch.
Thank you, Ginger.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jennifer Branch, and I too am running for Hamilton County Common Pleas Court. If you meet all of us, there'll be 13 judicial candidates this season. I do not have a primary, which means I'm not opposed. I'll be on the ballot, but there's no opposition. So I will also be brief because our other two candidates do have primary opponents. All four of us are endorsed by the Hamilton County Democratic Party. I'm an attorney in Cincinnati. I've been practicing civil rights litigation for over 30 years. I started at the Legal Aid Society in Cincinnati doing poverty law. And I have been trying to get justice for my clients for the last 30-some years in Hamilton County, and I've decided that it's time for me to do justice and run for judge. I am running because we need to have courts that feel that the people who participate in the courtroom feel that they have sought and received justice. And think about it. Every trial has a loser. Somebody loses. A party loses, a defendant, a prosecutor, the lawyer feels like they've lost. And what makes the system seem fair is if you, the loser, walk out feeling that you lost for the right reasons. In other words, it was a fair judge, it was a fair process, and the truth came out. Over 20 years ago, I represented a transgender inmate who had gotten beaten up at Warren Correctional because she looked like a female from the waist up, not from the waist down, wouldn't succumb to sexual harassment, got beaten up, and we sued on her behalf. We went to trial in Hamilton, here in Cincinnati, in the federal court, and we lost. Not too surprised by that. First transgender person those jurors had ever met. And it felt terrible losing that case because she shouldn't have lost, in my opinion, as her lawyer. 3 of the jurors asked the judge to come into the courtroom and talk to her afterwards. They walked right up to her, not to me, not to Al, my partner. She walked up to her and shook her hand and said, "We want to make sure you know that you lost because your lawyers didn't prove your case. Not because you're transgender and not because we have anything against you." And that was the best I ever felt in my whole life, losing a trial. Because my client understood that there was no bias, there was no discrimination. It was about the facts of the case and they just didn't agree with us. So that's how everybody should feel, and everyone should be respected when they're in the courtroom, and that's what I would hope to achieve as a judge. I'm just going to give the opposite example of that. I've represented Tracy Hunter for 9 years now, and that's a trial where a person, the criminal defendant, came out of that feeling that it wasn't fair, which is why people are still demonstrating. Because justice was not done in that courtroom, in the opinion of observers and the defendant. I'd like to fix that in Hamilton County. So I would ask for your support. I too am on the sample ballot here. It is available if you need them. We'll certainly get them to you. November 3rd is the election day. I will have an opponent then, and that is, you're welcome to vote for me in March on the primary day. That would be great, but November 3rd, remember to bring this with you. Save it till November. Thank you. Next. So I will turn it over to Nicole Sanders, who is running in the primary as well. And Nikki is running for drug court.
Good morning, well, it's afternoon now. Good afternoon. So as Jennifer said, I am Nicole Sanders, and I am running for drug court. I do have a primary. So what I will tell you first is not only am I the endorsed Democrat for the drug court, I am the only lifelong registered primary voting Democrat in the primary. So please understand that I would ask that you would just do your research on your primary opponents and figure out who is the real Democrat in the House. So I'm a lifelong Cincinnatian, born and raised. I grew up in Madisonville. I attended Withrow. I did not graduate. I'm dyslexic. So I had a learning disability and I can't do algebra. If you want to frustrate Magistrate Sanders, give me a math problem and you will frustrate me. So I went and got a GED, was frustrated for a couple of years because I'd always been an A student, never had any problems academically. And then I went back to school, graduated in 3 years, got a full scholarship to law school, graduated law school, right out of law school, was hired at the City of Cincinnati Prosecutor's Office. I worked there for 2 years. While I was there, I was a special prosecutor for the mental health court. The mental health court is certified by the Ohio Supreme Court. It is non-adversarial and it is treatment focused, much like the drug court, which I'm running for, which is non-adversarial, certified by the Ohio Supreme Court, and treatment focused. Also, while I was at the City of Cincinnati, I was a litigator, civil litigator. I did some civil rights, political subdivision immunity. I did employment law, municipal taxes. I was a jack of all trades. Basically, whatever you could put on my desk, I litigated. I also did some appellate work and practiced in front of the First District Court of Appeals. I've also practiced at every federal level except for the U.S. Supreme Court. I've helped written a writ of petition for certiorari, but I've never gotten to step foot in the court, but I did help write a petition. So what I'm saying is that I have practiced on every level, state and federal, except for the Northern District of Ohio. You have to make sure you're very accurate about your qualifications. But that's easy. We're all qualified. Let's just be honest. Everybody who's running is qualified academically and career-wise. I've been a 16-year public servant for the city of Cincinnati and Hamilton County. That's easy. Let's get to the reason why I'm running for drug court. How many people know that there's a drug court in Hamilton County before I told you?
Because you told me before.
Right. So that's about 1/10 of the people in this room. How many people know who your drug court judge is? That's one person. But you do know that there's an opioid crisis, correct? Everybody knows that, right? So if you have a crisis, you should know about a solution, correct? You should know about a drug court that's there to offer treatment. That's the problem. That's why I'm running. I'm going to tell you a story about a friend of mine. She is my case manager. I am a sitting magistrate in the juvenile court. Judge Hunter appointed me when she was on the bench. So I've been there for 7 years. I practice in juvenile, I don't practice, but I hear cases in juvenile court. So I have a case manager. A case manager is somebody that you interact with daily, who takes care of your paperwork, who calls your cases, who basically runs your courtroom and keeps you on track. So I have a case manager. Her name is Angie. She said I could share her story, so I'm not revealing or breaking any confidences. And Angie and I are really friendly. Love her dearly. 2016, she voted for Trump and my feelings were hurt. But she is, a Caucasian woman. She's married. She lives on the west side and she's a Republican. It doesn't matter. I love Angie dearly. We're friends. So one day, I subscribe to something that's called tough love in my courtroom. I do child support. It's not an easy area of law. Nobody loves me. However, I care about kids and I want to make sure that they're taken care of. So I had a young man in front of me, substance abuse, homeless, just kind of in a mess. And my heart went out to him because as a juvenile court magistrate, I don't have the tools or the jurisdiction to really force him into treatment. But I'm also a person that's compassionate and have common sense to realize that someone who is suffering from substance abuse, is homeless, can't pay their child support, right? So here I have this conundrum. I have to try to force him to pay child support with resources he doesn't have, with the illness he hasn't dealt with, right? Horrible position for me to be in, and even worse position for him to be in. So I tried to talk to him and tell him, I understand I gotta make you pay this child support, but I really need you to think about treatment. I really need you to think about getting a residence, getting a job. He was like, I don't know if I can do it. And so what I did was I laid out some resources for him. I can't order him to anything as a juvenile court magistrate. I don't have that authority, but I can refer him to the Tower House. I can refer him to the Gospel City Mission. I can tell him to go to the Ohio Justice and Policy Center where they can help him clean up his record. I can send him to jobs because I scour Facebook, I scour the papers. When you come in my courtroom, when you look at my tables, there's a bunch of stuff on there. People say it's messy, but guess what? There are resources for people to take with them when they leave my courtroom. When you leave my courtroom, you have more resources leaving than you do coming in. So that's where this young man and I were at. And so after I talked to him, Angie was like, I need you to do something for me. I need you to talk to one of my daughters. She has 3 daughters. All of them were immersed in substance abuse. I mean, bad. They're in their 20s and their 30s. They're out in the street. She doesn't know where they're at. They call her on payday to get money. They show up on her job. It's horrible. And I know it's horrible because I see the effects that it has on Angie. Angie can't concentrate sometimes. You can tell when it's a bad day for the kids because it's a bad day for her. She's just not engaged. She's not vibrant. She's worried about her kids. So she asked me to help her daughter, and I'm like, I'm not their mother. And there are 2 judges upstairs who might be better equipped. And she said, no, I want you to do it because I work with you and I see how you care. So I want you to do it. I said, Angie, I don't know. But I did it because Angie's my friend. And I love Angie. And I see how much the illness of her daughters is affecting her. So Sammy came in, and Sammy looked bad. She looked exactly like someone who suffered from substance abuse would. Her skin was pale. She was disheveled. She didn't have any vibrancy in her personality. You could feel like she felt a little ashamed. She was reluctant to talk. And so it took me a little bit and started talking to her, and I asked her what was going on. She said, I'm just tired. She said, there's got to be something that's changing, but I'm tired. And I'm like, well, what are you tired about? She said, I'm sick and tired. And I said, well, Sam, you got to tell me what you're sick and tired about. So we just weren't getting anywhere. We were going in circles. So I said, well, tell me what you missed the most. What has drugs taken from you the most? And she looked at her mom, and she said, I miss my mom, and I miss my daughter. And I said, well, that's an easy fix, because I know what's going on with your mother, and I can tell you that what you're doing to yourself is killing your mom, because her mom had a heart attack behind it. She was just so disheveled. She ended up in the hospital. So I said, if you really want to change the relationship with your mom and your daughter, you can do that. But the first step is recovery. You got to get in a treatment. She didn't want to go to drug court. She will not tell me why. But she had the option to go to drug court because she's been arrested before, but she just didn't want to go. I don't know why, but she was fearful of drug court. So I talked to Sammy and I said, if you go, I will be there every step of the way with you. So she went. So when she went through withdrawal, I stayed with her. I didn't stay in the facility with her, but I was there to support her with her. When she got into the Ann Louise house, I was supportive there. She recently went to sober living. When she got 9 months clean, she came in. She gave me a hug, a big kiss. We went to lunch, and she was a completely different person. Healthy, vibrant, confident, hopeful. But it wasn't just her. I looked at her mother, vibrant, healthy, hopeful, happy. And to see the two, them interact with each other, to see the relationship, just made my heart sing. She's like, Miss Nikki, I'm ready to get a job. I'm ready to move out on my own. And we were a little worried with her moving out on her own because it's not quite a year yet. So guess what she did? She went to sober living. She didn't go right to her home. She went to sober living. So she made a different choice. So on February 26th, I will not be on the campaign trail. I will be at her graduation ceremony down at St. Peter Trains at 6 o'clock on February 26th because we got one back. Out of 3 daughters, we rescued one. And as we rescued one, we rescued a piece of Angie. So that's why I want to run for drug court. I feel like if you stabilize the person, you can stabilize their family, you can stabilize the community. Because substance abuse is not a solitary disease. It affects everyone. It affects their mother, their father, it affects their children, it affects their employers, it affects the community. So if we change the way we deal with substance abuse, people who are addicted, then we can change our community. I don't think Narcan should be the end-all, be-all. People think that that's the solution for everything. Oh, they're dying, just hit them with it. Why don't we intervene before then and we focus on treatment? Why don't we aggressively go after them for treatment? Why do we have to wait till they're on the steps of death to intervene? I just don't think we should be there. So I want more stories like Sammy. I want to reach more people like Sammy. I found my passion in juvenile court. I had no idea a year ago when I started this with her that I would be here this morning asking for your vote on March 17th as your drug court judge. That was never a part of my plan. My plan was just help the daughter of my friend who asked me. And in doing so, I found what I think I should be doing, which is trying to help other people. Because if I can reach one more person, if I can reach 2 more people, as the drug court judge, think how many people we can reach. But it takes a person with compassion. It takes a person who can meet you where you are. It takes a person who's not going to have judgment. And it takes a person who understands that substance abuse is a disease, not a criminal offense. So if I, better yet, when I am elected, I will administer the court differently. First, I'm going to look at accessibility, making sure that it's fair for everyone regardless of race, gender, immigration status, because the disease does not discriminate. We know it touches everybody regardless of sex, race, gender, education, and political affiliations. It touches everyone. Everyone in here knows a story about someone who's been addicted. I don't know if they lived or they died, but you can relate to it. Secondly, we need some transparency. I don't think we really know how many people we allow into the program. I don't know if we know how many people we kick out of the program. I don't know if we know what criteria they use to allow people in the program and to keep people out of the program. I don't know if we know what the graduation rates are. That might be important to determine how successful the drug court is. Don't you agree? Also, I want to eliminate having the prosecutors be the gatekeepers. The statute does not require prosecutorial approval for accessibility into the program. We've got to stop letting them be the gatekeepers. Substance abuse is not a criminal offense. We have to stop treating it like that. And finally, we have to make sure that the choice for treatment is a real choice and is not more punitive to incarceration. Because if you're subjecting the individual to more testing and more conditions that they are incarcerated, they're never going to choose it. They won't. They're not going to choose it. They're going to choose incarceration and get out, and then the cycle is going to continue. So we have to make sure that we review what we're really doing in this court and make sure that we expand treatment options to make sure that, one, they're real treatment options, and to make sure that we have statistics so that people know what the court is doing. You have to have some transparency. And three, to make sure that it's open and accessible for everyone. Substance abuse doesn't discriminate, and the drug court shouldn't either. So on March 17th, that's primary day. I need you to vote for Nicole Sanders and my slate mates. I can't tell you who they are. I can just say that they're on this card, and I'm proud to be with them. They are the most diverse and qualified group of people ever running in the Democratic slate, and I'm so proud to be a part of them. But if you want to flip the court, take this card with you and flip the card. I'm on the front with Kari Bloom. Flip the back, and you see who the other slate mates are. Remember, if you want to flip the court, flip the card. My name is Nicole Sanders, and I need your vote March 17th.
Good afternoon, everyone. I couldn't ask for a better introduction than the three candidates who came before me. You can see how exciting this year is going to be, and already is for Democrats, for women, and for the court. So I am happy to be back here with you. I visited last year in my previous campaign, and I am running this year for juvenile court judge. Now, you might remember last year we talked a little bit about how I started my career representing children. I represented them in a couple of lawsuits that sued the Department of Education and the Department of Youth Services, and we ended up, well, I say we, I was a law student, so I was all the way down the page. I was the last name on the page when we got to sign our names, but we closed about 4 facilities where we were holding children in prisons in Ohio. And so that sparked my interest and the fire in my belly for representing children and for reminding communities and lawyers and judges that children are children. They are not small criminals. Children are children, and they are not small criminals. And that's something that I've been repeating a lot of times in my head, but oftentimes to judges and to other attorneys and to other advocates as we kind of grapple with what do we do with the criminal justice system, but especially what do we do with the juvenile justice system. You'll notice that we don't call it the juvenile criminal justice system because children are not small criminals, and they deserve our justice, and they deserve our attention. So a few years ago, I started working in the Hamilton County Public Defender's Office, and I got to work in the juvenile division. And that was about the time that there was a different kind of lawsuit. There had been an election, and there was a judge who was elected, and then there was a lawsuit to to count the votes, and I think that's maybe when candidate Branch got involved, and a few years later, we ended up with Judge Hunter in her position where she had been elected to, and Judge Williams, who had not been elected, and had actually been defeated in that election, but had been appointed to a different position. Judge Williams is who I am running against. And something that was very interesting to me, we have to interview when we apply to be candidates, and it's a really exciting time. We get to talk about kind of all of our plans and things that we will do. And someone said to me, what are you going to do about, John Williams? What are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to remind all the Democrats that we beat him one time, and we're going to beat him again. And this time, there isn't any place for him to go. There isn't any place for him to get appointed to, so we're going to ask him to see himself out. And that's where you guys come in, and I know you've been asked a couple of times today to vote, but on March 17th, remember that there are opposed primaries. There's primaries for everyone. It's a little confusing to me, but primaries for everyone, but candidate Sanders and I have opposition. And we would ask for you to vote all the way down the Democratic ballot and to make sure that you vote for the judges. And when we say all the way down, we mean actually flipping the pages, because as Democrats, we have a lot of opportunity this year to vote for a lot of great Democrats. And so we would ask you to just keep flipping the pages and just keep voting. So just briefly about why I'm running for juvenile court and what I'm going to do when I get there is, we started this conversation saying that children are not small criminals. Well, in Hamilton County, what we have been doing for several decades is treating them just as that. And we've been treating a certain segment of our population in Hamilton County as more dangerous, and the word that was coined in the 90s is super predators. More dangerous, more predatory, and more needing of being locked up, being kicked out of schools, and being kind of shoved into our prison system, which you've probably heard the school to prison pipeline reference before. The school to prison pipeline stops in any courtroom that I enter. When I'm elected judge, it stops in the Hamilton County Juvenile Court. We are stopping that. And let me tell you why. Because first of all, we know that it's wrong to treat children as if they are adults, but also we have the resources here in this county. We have the schools, we have great schools. We have great teachers. We have the opportunity to utilize many nonprofit organizations, many children's organizations, and many people who care about rehabilitation of children. We have them already here. We do not have to reinvent the wheel. What we have to do is change the way that we look at these children. Because like we said, they are not small criminals, they are children. They're children. Now the goal of juvenile court, its stated goal, its statutory goal, its shiny goal on the outside is to rehabilitate children. It's to get them back to a place where they are a kid and they can make their own decisions as a kid to be successful in their life as a kid. But that is not what we are doing in the juvenile court. We are treating them as adults. We are treating them as adults who know better, and we are treating them as if they have personally offended the rest of us. We're sending them to adult court to send them to adult prison. We're keeping them locked up just down the street in 2020 Auburn Avenue, and until, with Judge Hunter's help, we stopped shackling them. We were shackling them at their feet and at their hands when they came into courtrooms. We don't do that for adults. We don't shackle adults when they come into courtrooms. All of us have represented someone who is, by society standards, much more dangerous than any child who doesn't come into a courtroom shackled. But we were shackling children within the last 7 years. And that is because we look at them like they are small criminals, like they are these super predators, and they are not. And the rest of the world, well, most of the rest of the world, has accepted that super predators was a thing we should have never said. We'd like to take that back. We'd like to go back to the 90s and erase that part of history, but we can't. We can't, right? But we can make it better. And there are other places who are treating children as if they are children. And there are other places who have acknowledged that that was a mistake. We shouldn't label children, and we should definitely not label them as criminals. But here, we haven't accepted that. And we haven't stopped doing that. And the practice is hurting our kids. And it's hurting us too, because children are our future. There are songs about that, right? Children are our future, and our kids are what, my parents are looking forward to their children taking care of them in the future. So, the rest of us should look forward to the children who exist now, to taking care of us in the future, taking care of our earth, taking care of the businesses that we grow, taking care of the other children that we create and bring into the world. But instead, what we're doing is we are telling them that they are bad. So I'll leave you with a story that, oh yes?
You haven't really mentioned the whole idea of racial bias.
Oh, yes.
You haven't mentioned that once.
I would, thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Because who's going to be labeled as a super predator? Hello?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, African American children are labeled as super predators. And I'm sorry for not mentioning racial bias. And the reason that I didn't is it slipped my mind, but I should have started with the majority of the children in our juvenile justice system are brown and black, and they are boys. So mentioning racial bias is, you are absolutely right. That is one of the biggest problems that we face. And we can see it with our eyes, right? But it is not the only problem, and it is not, to me, it is not the root problem. The root problem is not racial bias, it's racism. And it is that we have associated the term super predator with black and brown kids. It's that we've associated suspensions and expulsions from school and other behaviors, negative behaviors, with black and brown boys and starting girls now. And it's that we have accepted that. We've accepted that. And so thank you for reminding me to bring that up. That is something that I accept as whole cloth, absolutely is happening. No matter what we do, we have to address that, so I don't always say it, and that is my mistake. Yes?
What is a child? How old are the kids in juvenile court?
Yes, the question was how old are the children who are in juvenile court? When I was in juvenile court, I represented an 8-year-old who had been arrested for arson, which is a felony of the first degree, because he and his cousin were lighting matches and throwing them into a trash can, and it made like a big whoosh, which was their whole point, because they were 8-year-olds. And the police arrested them and took them to 2020, where they were held, and they were held there until actually someone who was on this slate, who is a magistrate, her name's Wendy Cross, she's Magistrate Cross, we had a trial in front of her, and at the end of the trial they were released, and the charge was dismissed, because of course that is not arson. That is boys playing with fire, which is maybe not safe, but not safe and not a good idea is not the same as a crime. So we start with 8 or 9-year-olds, and we go all the way up to 18. However, if you are a child who has been involved in the juvenile justice system before you turn 18, we can keep our hook in you until you're 21. I would note that when you are 14 years old, no matter what you look like, if you're a small 14, if you're a grown man 14 or grown woman, you are eligible to go to adult prison in Ohio when you are 14 years old. And that feels bad. It always gives me a very cold feeling, and that's because I know that we do it. It's not just that we're eligible or you're eligible to do it or it could happen. We do that here. We do that. And the court has a hand in that. The juvenile court judges have a hand in that happening. Not the magistrates, because that is something that we ask our judges to make the decisions about. That's why voting for judges, and I know you guys know this from when Ginger ran a couple of years ago, judges are so important, right? And juvenile court judges are also so important because they make these major decisions on behalf of our children. So, like I was saying, I'll end with this story where I have a niece and nephew who are 5, which I can't believe, and 1, and they are remarkably hilarious, and they're at the ages where they parrot us. They say everything that we say. So my sister and brother-in-law have asked us to stop cussing, and they've asked us to clean up our language and not talk about certain things because, the 5-year-old goes to school and says, my aunt drinks wine, and then they get a call, and so we've had to clean up some of that. And that is because they are children, and that's what we expect them to do. They are sponges. They just soak in everything they hear, and they don't know if it's good or bad yet, because we haven't told them, and they haven't learned because they're children. And so they say some really funny things. They were watching a princess movie, and she got her crown, and she says, "Oh, I love this crown," and my niece says, "My daddy drinks Crown," which I love and think is hilarious because they're not my children. But my sister is like, "Oh my god." She's 5. It's and he doesn't drink Crown, so I don't know where that came from. But it's funny.
We've heard these things.
But we have to, we acknowledge that they're sponges. We change our behavior because we are the adults. We don't ask them to change their behavior. We don't say, "Morgan, stop repeating me." We don't say that, right? Because they're children and they're developing. Now, compare that to someone who is black or brown, who is in school, who repeats something that they heard and is punished for it, and is kicked out of school or asked to spend the day in a detention room or is removed from their friends for doing the same thing that just made us laugh so hard. Because those children are sponges too. And what we have to remember is they are also taking in everything we tell them. If we tell them they're bad, they believe they're bad. They trust us, the adults. So we have to tell them, you are a child, and we are going to help you. And that's why I'm running for juvenile court judge. I'm happy to answer any of your questions, and I'm happy, yes, there are questions.
Oh, no, it's not exactly a question. As far as kids' mouths, we had to change all the ways we talk. We're terrible, cussing people on Bristol Lane. And one day my little daughter is about 4 years old, and she's 3 or 4, she said, we were eating supper. She had a little plate in front of her. She said, these peas taste motherfucker.
Is this on? Yes. I have 3 questions for Judge-to-be Sanders.
Yes.
First, I want to say the world is such a mess. I call this free group therapy. When I come in here, I feel so, and to see you outstanding women running for office really is incredible.
Thank you very much.
Maybe I won't shoot myself with the candidate. But Dr. Posey and I have been working with addiction for years. We're Smart Recovery volunteers. And I wondered if you know about Smart Recovery and if you would let people go to Smart Recovery instead of 12-step. That's one question. And also, when people relapse, a lot of judges send them back to jail. Which is crazy. We don't send diabetics to jail when they get a setback. And I'm assuming you don't believe in that, but I just wanted to check. Third question, real quick, is our treatment programs are horrible. They are too short. It takes at least a year for a person's brain to settle down. I do Smart Recovery at the VA. They're there for 21 days. And no wonder they go out and kill themselves and relapse. Our treatment programs suck. We need a first step home for women on every corner. And I wonder if you have any hope that we'll get more better treatment programs.
So let me just be real transparent. As a judicial candidate, as a sitting magistrate, I can't make any pledges or promises. But what I can tell you is that I do plan to better administer that. I said that I believe in expanding treatment options. That means there's a recognition that maybe what we've been doing hasn't worked and we need to try something different. And I'm not talking about just the treatment options, I'm talking about the people who have been in the program. If you've been there 18 years, if you've been there 25 years, perhaps you're part of the problem. If you haven't sought out new treatment options and tried to expand the treatment options. So I would like to expand the treatment options. I would like to review them, see what the science says, see what the scientific evidence says, and then go in that direction. But I would have to make sure that it's based science and medical evidence based and not just criminal law enforcement based. Second, substance abuse is a disease. It's not a criminal offense. So relapsing is part of the recovery process. You're gonna have one or two of those in the process. You didn't just get addicted in one day, right? It was a process. So I understand that the addiction problem involves relapse and recovery. And I believe that it's a disease and not a criminal offense.
Are there set rules as far as someone relapsing if they've been sentenced to, like, you know?
So there are rules, but the drug court judge also has some discretion.
That's what I was wondering.
And so that's one of the reasons why we need a change, because maybe we need someone who has the compassion to take the time to do the research and to find out what has worked and what hasn't worked. And that takes me back to when I said statistics. We don't know, do we? We don't know how many people are allowed in. We don't know who's allowed in. We don't know who's kicked out and for why and what criteria is used. And we don't know who graduates. So all of that needs to be reviewed and modified. And that's what I plan to do when I get to that court. You have any other questions? Did I answer the questions for you?
Do you see any money coming down the pipe so we can have more places like First Step Home?
I don't know. And what I'll tell you is 2020 is an opportunity to be transformative on so many levels because you have county commissioner races too. And you got to think about what they're in charge of, and that's the budget. So you have to think about the interconnectedness of all of these races and what you have the opportunity to do in 2020. Judges don't control or set the budget. Sometimes they control it or how you spend it, but they don't set the budget. But when you talk about money and grants and different things, you gotta look at the county commissioner's office.
Yeah, I'm here to support the idea that the young people are not criminals. I directed 2 youth service bureaus in Illinois, one in the city and one in the suburban and rural.
Just a little closer.
We utilize family systems therapy with kids that we were police called. We went to the precinct, we like I said, we use family systems therapy, and what we almost always found was that the child was representing some problem in the family system. They were acting out a problem in the family. It was not them that was the problem.
Simple.
On drugs, I would recommend Nicholas Kristof's book, Tight has a very good discussion. One of the things that he mentions is that there's a program in Boston where the police, instead of arresting drug people, link them right up immediately with social services that are available. But he goes, it's great, he goes from the Sackler billionaires to a black woman who's been stuck in Alabama serving a life sentence without parole because she had one bag of drugs she brought from Harlem to a relative in Alabama. So it's a great discussion. But I thought that if there were, obviously it's interconnected with who's running for sheriff and other things, but you could have a whole lot more humane way of dealing with people with drug problems.
Anybody else?
Yeah, there's.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Thanks for running.
Thanks for running.
We still have 3 judges. We still have 3 out of 4. Some people have stuff to do. Ladies, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here before the election, and thank you for running. It's really important.
You did see the number of women that are on this slate card. We're loving it. We're loving it. It's the year of the woman, 2020.
Yeah, I got it. That's about the time.
You know where I am?